Hi, and welcome back to Circle Time Clapbacks, the fastest growing podcast for educational communication issues. On today's episode, we will be going over some story submissions from various schools and grade levels to talk about something I think everyone can relate to: trust. This glimpse into how students, teachers, and staff view trust in various situations can not only be enlightening, but also help us better understand one another and people's actions. So sit back, relax, pour yourself a nice cup of tea as we cover the role of emotional connection versus logical evaluation, exploring the differences between active and cognitive trust in a school classroom. Small groups are a part of life. Friend groups, school groups, cliques, work groups, gym groups, everywhere one looks, there's a different group for socialization or to help keep things running. In early development, small groups can be essential to behavioral activity. However, it is more often than not that groups will be used in schools and extracurriculars to assist with classroom management instead of to better the child. Barbara Wazik, a clinical psychologist at Temple University, goes over the importance of small groups for children to develop in her paper, When Fewer is More: Small Groups in Early Childhood Classrooms. Children want to feel seen and heard, and small groups allow for instructors to work with individual aspects of multiple children. It is unfortunate that small groups are more often used to bunch up the children together instead of taking particular strengths and weaknesses into account. Jaden actually shared a story about a poor small group. When I was in second grade, I was partnered with the teacher's niece, the class clown, a shy boy, and my best friend. The niece hated my best friend and refused to talk to her and would loudly talk to other members about not talking to her. The class clown would keep breaking out about projects and trying to juggle it or just get some laughs. The shy boy never participated in the group, and I usually got yelled at by all members for either being too bossy or because I was not participating when they actually wanted to work. It was a miserable time, and I wish the teacher would have been able to just be more present with our group as we moved around. Wow, Jaden, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. That sounds horrible, and it sounds like your group was just a bit too big and too chaotic to just deal with by itself. Wazik actually advised that small groups not exceed 5 people, be intentionally organized towards the activity in mind, and distinct from play or group time, particularly for children. To be the most efficient, teachers need to play an active role in groups, speaking to students, asking leading questions, making suggestions, and being sure to have a try at all participants. Small groups have a tendency to elevate the way a child speaks and their vocabulary. Better behavior, better communication, better learning, and analysis are all benefits of small groups. In addition to its educational uses, small groups can alter behavior. Lilac shared a story I'm sure most can relate to. As a student, I was always a good kid that teachers would partner and troublemakers with to try and see if my goodness would rub off on them. It usually caused the students I was partnered with to despise me. But one time in middle school, I was in a group of about 3 students. One, of course, the class troublemaker. The assignment was over a dystopian novel, and we had to create an alternate ending to act out the scene. At first, the troublemaker spoke of how stupid the assignment is, and how no one cares about the ending, and how they just could not understand the point. The teacher was very present in our group and explained how she wanted to give us a chance to be creative. She specifically mentioned being inspired by the short story the troublemaker wrote for a different assignment. I thought my teacher was making things up because the troublemaker always spoke of hating creative things, as they had no logical reason to be taught. However, after making sure all had a say and an opinion, the troublemaker lit up when the teacher and I expressed our delight at the suggestion for an ending scene. When I asked them for prop ideas, they started to participate and get very involved in the project. They later joined theater as a stage manager for our last play that was put on. That's amazing, Lilac. I'm so happy that your teacher was able to see that y'all just needed a little bit better communication with each other. Alexandra Borick, a researcher at the University of Oxford, and Charles Abraham, a professor at the University of Sussex, dive into how behaviors can change through interactions with small groups in their paper, How Do Small Groups Promote Behavior Change? An integrative conceptual review of explanatory mechanisms. Borick and Abraham mention 7 core characteristics of small groups: a common purpose, pro-group perceptions, so values and motivations, shared values and norms, group structure, interdependence, group cohesion and climate, and disclosure and feedback. Studying multiple papers and literature reviews, Borick and Abraham suggested that safe learning environments, engagement, and staying focused is what teachers should focus on when working with small groups. Using personal examples help the knowledge be absorbed, and adding an activity can help learning by doing. So when the teacher was having Lilac create a different stage adaptation for the ending of a play, they were helping with learning by doing, and then seeing that knowledge is absorbed by explaining to the troublemaker that they were actually inspired by their original story. In order to separate students into the most efficient groups possible, there has to be a level of trust. The students have to trust the teachers to match them with others that they will work well with. Students have to trust each other to do their part correctly and concisely. And then teachers have to trust that students will work and make the most of their group. There are 2 types of trust that are most commonly used in these types of situations. Cognitive trust is the first type of trust. SoftSkillPills.com explains that cognitive trust is trust of the head. It is the trust the student has in a teacher to teach them the day's lesson. It is the trust that a teacher has in her student's ability to complete a task. Cognitive trust is the faith that others are competent, responsible, and able to complete tasks, actions, and requirements. On the other side, there is affective trust. This is what SoftSkillPills.com calls trust of the heart. When empathy, emotions, relations, and interpersonal feelings are concerned, trust is affective. That's affective. Examples of affective trust are students trusting the teachers to be honest and reassuring when giving constructive feedback. A student might trust their teacher to respect their accommodations and not talk down to them. At Tom is our very first teacher story of the day. Yay! According to Tom,
when I would teach about ancient Greece, I would divide the history class into groups representing different city-states of ancient Greece. Each group was tasked with looking up their own economy, policies, education, and markets. Once a group has their knowledge, I would send random city-states to war with each other and task students with explaining who would win, why, and where the war was happening. I would often have to closely watch the groups, as the research would be pawned off on 1 or 2 students while the others talked about who they wanted to go to war with. I knew all of my students were smart and capable, so seeing them use each other to complete their work caused me to question their responsibility and competency. Even though the wars were fake, it sometimes had the kids would get mad if their friends beat them in real life and say it would cause shifts and break their relationships.
Wow, Tom, that honestly sounds like an awesome project to do with students. I myself have run into a lot of the times when I've asked to do a majority of the share of the project, so I can get how it feels like the rest of the group is incompetent. I do like that you paid close attention and kept your eye on all the groups so you knew who was doing what and where people were. When in a school setting, competition and comparison are normal and pretty much expected. However, comparison can lead to distrust, exclusion, and hurt feelings. This is explored in the paper It Hurts Both Ways: How Social Comparison Harm Affective and Cognitive Trust by Jennifer Dunn, Nicole Ruddy, and Marie Swartz. People are, at their core, human. So if a teacher praises the work of a student and uses an example or a standard, basically putting it on a pedestal, another student might have their feelings hurt or extract that their work is just simply not good enough. This, in turn, could cause a rift between students, straining their relationship, because the teacher's cognitive trust in one student's ability to inspire others can cause the affective trust between those students to be shattered. Now, if a teacher puts 4 students together in a group, the group members might begin to compare themselves after their work starts to be critiqued. An upwards comparison is when individuals compare themselves to an individual who they deem to be better. Affective trust can be hurt by said comparisons as the emotional tensions become high. Becca submitted a story about when her and her twin sister were in a group with a STAR student. It was a winter project to explain a holiday celebrated in a different part of the world. The STAR student immediately started taking charge and suggesting a holiday for a country that had not yet been covered in class. When me and my sister mentioned that we would be more comfortable doing a country that's already been covered, the STAR student told us to not be silly, and she'll help us when we start to fall behind. Working on an ornament with the STAR student, she would steadily critique what I was doing and offer suggestions to make it better. I started to feel unmotivated, and my self-esteem would drop because I felt like I couldn't do anything right in the STAR student's eyes. My sister stopped working on the project altogether because she felt the STAR student was just taking it over, and she didn't even see why should she be working on it.
Wow, Becca, I am so sorry you had to go through that. Being made to feel like you can't do anything right is never a good feeling, especially when working on a super fun project in a small group environment.
On the other side, there are downward comparisons. These are comparisons an individual makes against someone they deem to be worse off. This is where, in terms of cognitive trust, things start to take a downward turn. Work ethic can be affected, and self-esteem can simply plummet. Henry submitted a story from his 5th grade class about how he was the odd one out in a group lesson.
I had dyslexia growing up, and I still suffer with it to this day. In my 5th grade class, we were tasked with creating a script, and since my team members knew I had dyslexia, they constantly made comments about how I shouldn't be tasked with the writing or the note-taking or anything like that because they would have to do extra work to fix my errors. So my classmates just didn't trust me.
Wow, Henry, that's horrible. I'm so sorry you were treated that way. It definitely sounds like your teammates did not have any cognitive trust in you because of your dyslexia, and you, by default, lost your ability to trust your classmates and maybe even your ability to be friends with them. Dunn, Rudy, and Schwartz found an upward comparison hurts affective trust, while downward comparison hurts cognitive trust. It is important for the teacher to remain vigilant on the atmosphere of the group, ensuring that hostility and judgment are stopped. Also, praising students' strengths and helping with weaknesses that come along can limit the amount of comparisons. Communication can simply just be hard. Whether it's broken trust, high tensions, or not able to speak face-to-face, communication should not be stopped in the classroom. Something people can always keep their trust in is today's sponsor, Zoom. Zoom allows one another to meet, communicate, and work remotely. No longer does one have to go out of their way for group projects, wasting gas and wasting time. Working from the comfort of one's own home allows for more confidence and comfortability. Use today code ACTRUST, that's capital A, capital C, TRUST, for 2 months of free Zoom Plus. Now with more backgrounds and communication options. Use code ACTRUST and try out Zoom today. When COVID-19 first started affecting schools, it was not at all uncommon for students to catch the illness, report it, and then the students who sat near or were in contact with the infected students would be sent home too. The school nurse, office, teachers, everyone worked together to keep the students safe and in a healthy environment. However, some parents and students would get frustrated and claim teachers tracking students and sending people home was actually a violation of privacy. Marguerite submitted a story on how she is a school nurse and found it easier to approach the topic logically rather than emotionally. Instead of informing parents how their child was safer being sent home and it was also protecting other children, I would just have to say, as a nurse, it's in your child's best interest, and immediately parents were so much less likely to complain. I started having my coworkers send me their parental complaints since I just had a natural ability to make parents trust me as a nurse, which was weird because it was teachers proving that they care for their students' safety. Something interesting in Marguerite's case is her tactic is backed up by the paper to disclose or to falsify the effects of cognitive trust and affective trust on customer cooperations and contact tracing. This paper goes over how, in terms of contact tracing, information disclosed by somebody who others have cognitive trust is more likely to be accepted. People also disclose accurate information to a person they have cognitive trust in rather than affective trust. People feel that they are less likely to be led astray by somebody who is competent at their job. The rise of COVID-19 led many schools to switch to remote learning, which was amazing, and it just kept their students and staff safer. For an interesting change, we have a school administrator who wants to share his story about how he first started to brainstorm ways to tell parents, staff, and faculty that they were going remote. Tanner says he took a more humane type of an approach. We sent out videos after videos where we were sympathizing with each other, offering aid through laptop rentals, Wi-Fi boxes, reminding people that this was new and scary and patience was needed. At first, there was warm reception, but as time went on, people wanted more answers and less sympathy. My team started sending out research to get statements from local epidemiologists to explain the situation to parents, and the reception started to become positive again as people felt confident in the professionals and they believed their words more than just sympathy. Yeah, Tanner, some people just really need to know about the statistics. Starting off with an emotional connection and moving into a logical one can be very beneficial for groups. The paper, The Changing Importance of Affective Trust and Cognitive Trust Across a Relationship Life Cycle, a study of business-to-business relationships by David Dowell, Mark Morrison, and Troy Heffner, cover these topics. When first starting off, it's important to be friendly, develop an emotional bond, but as time goes on, proving oneself with the ability to accomplish and be reliable is what keeps people there and what allows them to continue to trust you. Students working remotely had to find new ways to work together and interact with each other. Student offered Zoom calls, the sponsor of today's video, which helped students be able to communicate with one another and teachers. Jasmine Jenkins, the author of Build Affective and Cognitive Trust to Bond with Your Remote Team. Here's how. Explained how important one-on-one meetings can be. It allows students to feel heard, and when there's an issue from group work, because the teacher has already been involved and already knows everyone, they're able to more clearly see what the issue is and how to move forward and deal with it. When on a Zoom, the sponsor, meeting, teachers would often ask the group how they feel about dealing with the pandemic. This allowed the students a place to vent and connect and just see what was going on in each other's lives. This caused many students to bond and develop more effective trust in all parties. Jenkins explains that building rapport between people is important for both groups and just overall development. Going remote caused a need for more cognitive trust. As teachers had to trust their students to do their work, and students had to trust their teachers to teach on a platform they were just not used to at all. Because of this, teachers would often implement unique ways of teaching. Social media was used more and more as an effort to get students to socialize and do their work. Kelsey shares how she was a senior in 2020, and one of her remote assignments was to work with 3 other students to research a historical figure and then create an Instagram account for them and taking turns doing the uploads. So I Zoomed like all of the time, and I would read papers about the figures, and I brainstormed about the figure's interest, and I created the timeline for the uploads, and I worked with my teammates, and we joked, and we bonded, and it was great, and I just felt less alone in this time where everyone was alone. And we made jokes over what scenarios we put our figures in, and I just trusted everyone to upload their parts on time because they always have. Kelsey's story is not unique. The paper, The Effects of Cognitive and Affective Trust Based on Students' Knowledge Sharing and Learning Performance During the COVID-19 Pandemic, sheds light onto the use of social media during COVID-19 pandemic. Students began to trust each other more and more and believed that what was on social media by their friends and acquaintances was true.
Social media utilized this information sharing to spread knowledge, which students took full advantage of.
In conclusion, small groups affect how students learn and connect with each other. Participation, learning, and behavior change are all affected by affective and cognitive trust. Interactions are based on the trust between students, teachers, and others. Affective and cognitive trust can have a deep impact on small groups' inner workings, whether traditionally in the classroom or remotely. All of the research compiled agrees that utilizing both affective and cognitive trust can make a group that works well together, it works cohesively together, and is just happier overall. Thank you, and thank you for listening. Join in next time where we're going over